Well, today again, Business Nigeria caught up with the president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN, Dr. Uche Olowu. Well, first, he spoke extensively on the core values, ethics, and the impact of the institute on the entire banking profession. Take a listen.
All over the world, the bankers have always had debts thrown at them, no doubt about it, because we deal with the commodities that everybody needs. So it's expected, like every other profession, you have, bad apples. That is not to say you can aspersion on the whole professionals. You have professionals. If you recall in time past, those that are required to reference people, the clergy, the banker, and then the civil servant. But as times begin to evolve, you see values are being eroded. And that value, as I want to say, is a reflection of the society. We cannot, divert ourselves because we are not going to the moon to bring people to work in the bank. The people, eroding value. So what we require is that value reorientation. That's one. But what we're doing is that in terms of professionalism, we are not regulators. We're not regulators, we are self-regulating bodies. But you have the regulators, CBN and NDS, Central Bank and Nigerian Deposit Insurance are regulators. They ensure that the right ethical conduct, are there. We have disciplinary mechanism where we have investigating panel so that for any area member, you report a case, the investigation panel picks it up and investigates it. Where there is element of culpability, it goes to disciplinary tribunal. And that disciplinary tribunal takes a decision. In fact, as an assessor, we have an assessor currently, previously was the retired Supreme Court Justice, who is currently now the ambassador to Great Britain. So you can see the level of quality that we have in our tribunal. And if the tribunal gives judgment, it ends there. You can only appeal in the court. In the appeal court. So it's almost having equivalent power of a high court. So that's also shows that we take discipline and ethical seriously. I said that in terms of professionalism, what we have done today is that Chartered Institute of Bankers is the accredited organization accrediting trainers in the industry. And that is to say that we determine the kind of people, the competency framework. Because I will always put it rightly in all the places I said. Basic philosophy is that organizations don't think, the people think. So if you want right optimal productivity, you have to tinker with the quality of your people.
Dr. Olowu spoke on reasons behind the high rates of non-performing loans, a very worrisome trend, and also other challenges facing Nigeria's banking system.
Tracing the root cause of the high NPL was that, you can't be better than the economy that we play in. What happened was that Nigeria is a monolithic economy. Our major revenue sources from oil. When the price of oil tipped, that means the revenue of the nation tipped as well. And what happened is that we have outflows more than inflows. What happened is that necessarily there was a deval. Let me just not bore you, but there was a deval. And that deval meant that some people have taken exchange risk, exposure risk. Because especially in the oil and gas sector and in the power sector. So that alone caused a lot of problems. And in an economy that is not doing too well, ability to repay facility is challenged. Seemingly, you could get some decent returns. And so that has happened, no doubt about that. And also government policy. Because part of the oil and gas, what happened in the oil and gas space was the fact that most banks took sovereign risk in the downstream sector. The government entered into a contract with downstream players with the fact that I will cure you if I don't pay you on time. That means I'm going to refund you the interest exposures. And also, if there is a devaluation, the difference between landing price and the selling price, I'll give you as a subsidy. I'll cure you on that. And so those, the marketers brought products into it and did their own part. Government did not honor their obligation. So government also, contributed to the problems that we're having, that are payment obligation. The banks have cleaned their books. You see most banks going to market to raise additional funds to cushion to have the balance sheet to enable them, do more business. The non-performing loans challenges are gradually being solved because the regulator, CBN, managed the process properly. You understand? And you see that we are still very strong, active, no doubt about it. Most of the books are being cleaned up in terms of raising additional capital to enable them do, because the impairment affected on their bottom line. And that means your capital is being eroded. What has happened, you need to shore up your capital base if you have to be active again. And that's what most banks are doing. And so there's no fear. The banks are still solid. They want to take more position. But this time around, I think they learned their lessons. They want to continue to do business in a more structured approach.
Well, it's great to hear that the banks are still very solid. I know Nigerians would really like to hear that, especially from somebody like the president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Well, he further commended efforts of the regulators, particularly in ensuring stability in the forex market.
For me, it was the application. So government also, contributed to the problems that we're having, that are payment obligation. The banks have cleaned their books. You see most banks going to market to raise additional funds to cushion to have the balance sheet to enable them do more business. The non-performing loans challenges are gradually being solved because the regulator, CBN, managed the process properly. You understand? And you see that we are still very strong, active, no doubt about it. Most of the books are being cleaned up in terms of raising additional capital to enable them do, because the impairment affected on their bottom line. And that means your capital is being eroded. What has happened, you need to shore up your capital base if you have to be active again. And that's what most banks are doing. And so there's no fear. The banks are still solid. They want to take more position. But this time around, I think they learned their lessons. They want to continue to do business in a more structured approach.
Well, it's great to hear that the banks are still very solid. I know Nigerians would really like to hear that, especially from somebody like the president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Well, he further commended efforts of the regulators, particularly in ensuring stability in the forex market.
For me, it was the policy on the window. It was brought stability. So kudos to the regulators, because it was a challenging time for the regulator. It's not the best time because revenue dipped, and yet you have a lot of, this is an import-dependent economy. So they were fritting away this scarce foreign exchange. What do you do? So they were able to manage and brought stability in terms of their eyes, and that brought confidence back to the system. It gave the exchange rate has been stabilized, and you've seen investors coming in. I think it was one of the best policies that has ever happened in trying to manage. So it's not surprise. Initially people never, they were, you were sick. Let me put it like this way: you were sick, you needed to take chloroquine. And that was what was given a dose. So we cured. The sickness was cured, so the economy got recovered out of a recession.
Rounding off the interview, Dr. Olowu highlighted issues surrounding transparency in the payment system of Nigerian banks. Listen to this very important one.
Let me take it from two angles. One is that in my acceptance speech as the 20th president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, and they said we're going to tell our own story. We want to change the narratives. Now, in terms of the financial payment system, Nigerian banks have done quite well in terms of you and I know that today you can do an instant payment, instant transfer. It doesn't happen that way in other climes. We pioneered. So Nigerian banks, kudos to them because they've done something well. Then on the other side, payment obligation, like what happened, you have a situation where Nigerian banks made payments to NNPC for lift of local products, and the marketers, went back to load without the banks knowing, because we're not privy to the contract according to NNPC. And that creates fraudulent practices. And generally, you see that people don't respect payment obligations. So the only way to cure this is that why not introduce, which we are trying to advocate, that local LC is a product. What it means is that the beneficiary of the LC, when he or she performs on the contract, is paid. So in that case, you restore confidence, like just what happens in international trade. So local LC will cure that payment obligation problem that we have. Because if the payment local LCs are established for NNPC, there is no way those marketers could have diverted that product. And ditto for other ventures that we do in Nigeria, because sanctity of contract needs to be respected. Payment, when it's time for payment, you get paid. In other advanced clients, they respect the payment system. They respect contracts. And that is not happening here. So, but it requires some good institutions, rules that will enable us, get us into line. And that's what we'll be advocating for as a professional body.